I'm Kevin Stevens. I'm the editorial director for Imagine Books, which is the adult imprint for Charles Bridge Publishing in Boston. And I'm very pleased to be able to have a conversation today with the three authors of A Mile at a Time, with Travis Macy, Mark Macy, and Patrick Regan. Welcome, gentlemen. It's really great to have you. This is a book that Imagine is very proud to have acquired. Fantastic story. A story that I think is about family. It's about persistence and achievement and all sorts of great topics that I think it'll be fun to talk about today. So Travis, I'd like to start with you and maybe if you could tell us a little bit about the genesis of the book and how it came about to be written, that would be great.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Kevin. Thanks for being with us today, and thanks even more for engaging with us in this project. You know, I think any author could say it takes a lot to create a book, and it's a lot of steady work over time, and the editor and the publishing company are huge parts of that. So we're just really glad to have you and the crew on the team. So,
right.
Yeah, you know, this book, it's been, Dad and I keep joking. It feels like it's kind of taken forever, huh, Dad? Like feels like it's been a while in the workings. And, you know, really the idea, I would say, came about around 2018 when Dad and I started thinking about doing the Eco Challenge adventure race in Fiji. That was also the year that Dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And then we were able to do that race in 2019. And we kind of realized really the goals were twofold. On the one hand was impact. That really, I think probably for most authors, you don't plan on getting rich or anything by any given book. You have to have a deeper desire. And for me, you know, it's similar. My first book was the Ultra Mindset, and the goal there was, I think that I can share some ideas from these endurance races I've done around the world that can help people. And it's the same thing here. Hopefully by sharing this story of our Alzheimer's journey, hopefully that can help other families, people with Alzheimer's, family of people with Alzheimer's, and hopefully, you know, families who are going through other hard things, whether that's a medical diagnosis or something else. So that's really the core desire. And then the secondary desire for me is a little more personal. Just, you know, writing is a powerful thing to do and can also be a cathartic and healing thing to do. And I think for me and probably for Dad as well, you know, the Alzheimer's journey, it's not easy, and you know, you expect at some point in your life the roles are going to shift between parents and their adult children. And for us, that happened pretty early. You know, Dad was 64 when he was diagnosed, and it was a lot for both of us to grapple with. For me, being more comfortable with sort of, you know, taking more of a leadership role. I was sort of going along through my life, and I had a career and kids and a house and everything else, and I thought I was a real adult. And this thing came along, and I realized I really needed to grow up in a whole new way. And I think, you know, and for Dad, part of his journey was becoming a little more comfortable accepting help. And that's a hard thing to do, especially for, you know, for a lot of us guys. So anyway, the writing process became just part of that journey and part of the reflection, part of the healing, part of, I would say the acceptance has been a big step. You know, you'll see in the early parts of that Alzheimer's journey, I mean, things were for me super, super hard. And one thing I wanted to do in the book is to share some of those really low and raw moments, just to show other people who might be going through something similar that, you know, it's part of the deal, and it's okay. And things can get better, you know, and they may get worse again. And it's a roller coaster. It's an up and down. You gotta navigate the uncertainty, all of those kind of things. So the writing definitely helped me personally. And I think it also, it helped our team. One of the things we try to share in the book is that a team approach to whether it's something like Alzheimer's or another medical challenge, or just an adventure race or life in general. That team approach is so important, and that's a big piece where Patrick came in. He's become a huge part of the team. Patrick and I think both really enjoyed working through the writing process together, sharing the work, sending drafts back and forth. We kind of approached it where he took the lead on about half the chapters and I took the lead on about half, and then we kind of we talked and we bounced things back and forth, and sat at the cool little funky coffee shop here in Salida, Colorado, and compared notes. And that for me, that team process and just a lot of those conversations with Patrick have been really helpful, and on a personal level. And I also think for Dad, readers of the book will see a lot of his journaling is included, and some of that was kind of handwritten at the start. A lot of it was dictated to my mom, who was doing the transcriptions, and that was I think also it was very much a team process. It was part of the journey. It's the impact, and then just the personal healing have really gone hand in hand with this book for us.
Well, let me say that you guys as a team did a fantastic job, because first of all, the book feels seamless. I know there's contributions from all of you into this, but it feels like really a single story, very personal and very powerful. I do love the blend of the main narrative, Travis, which is in your voice, and the very personal journal entries, Mark, that you contribute. I don't know how painful this is to talk about, Mark, but I'm just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what it was like to receive that Alzheimer's diagnosis, and how that news eventually resulted in your decision to participate in this eco challenge, which to my mind is really the central decision in the book, because it's a huge undertaking for anybody, never mind somebody that has received that kind of diagnosis. And maybe you talk a little bit about that for us.
Well, when I was told that I had Alzheimer's, obviously it kind of shook me, and it's not something that you expect to ever hear in your life. And if I remember correctly, a doctor told me that I had Alzheimer's, and he basically told me that I ought to, get your life in order, because you're going to die. Mm-hmm. And I immediately just thought, bullshit. I'm not going to die from this. You can't tell me I'm going to die. And I have, I still don't think that I'm going to die. Well, I'm going to die someday, but I'm not going to die from Alzheimer's, and I'm not ever quitting. And I think that, I don't know. I just think I'm not going to die from Alzheimer's disease just because somebody tells me I'm gonna, and I'm not going to quit doing what I do in my life. And I don't know. I'm not sure how long ago it was that I was told that I was going to die, but I'm still here, and I'm still doing. My life is essentially the same. I do everything that I've ever done, and I continued with the eco challenge, and I'm just going to keep after it, and that's it. It's as simple as that. You just can't quit doing what you're going to do just because somebody tells you you got this disease and you're going to die. I remember my insurance agent told me I was going to die. I said, what? You can't tell me that. Let's get out of here.
You do say it's simple, Mark. But first of all, to an ordinary mortal like me, it does not seem simple to take on one of these endurance races that you've done so many of. So I have great admiration for you guys and what you do anyway. But then to know that you had to process this information and deal with it, and at the same time continue to take on that fantastic challenge of the eco race it's an amazing story, and it really does resonate. But I also hear coming through in your voice that power of your will. It seems like you're a person with a very strong will. I mean, you had to be to do these races in the first place, and but to transfer that power from your passionate pursuit of a sport to the very, very personal details of your own, health. To me, I think you deserve a lot of praise for that. And you make it sound easy, but I know it couldn't have been easy, and you're due a lot of admiration for it, seems to me.
Well, that's nice of you to say that. I'm just a regular guy who did a lot of stuff and just decided I'm going to keep doing it as long as I can,
Yeah.
If I can add just a little there, Kevin, I think, really engagement and impact have been very important pieces of our Alzheimer's treatment, of addressing the journey. And, one of the big challenges of something like Alzheimer's is, you hear for decades, oh, no treatment, no cure. And thankfully, things are changing in that way on the medical front. We get the newest drug, the Biogen aducanumab, and hopefully other things that will happen along the way. But for what it's worth, I mean, I think that staying engaged is just huge. And that eco challenge decision, you're right, it was a big one. You look at, okay, you got a 10-day race out in Fiji, you're running, you're biking, you're paddling, you're navigating, you're going all night long, you're in the ocean, you're in the mountains, it's hot, it's cold. It's very hard for anyone to do. And there's definitely increased risk when you got Alzheimer's along kind of as your fifth teammate and right. your fifth very unknown, unpredictable teammate. Yes, there's a big risk to that. But one thing I feel like I realized as we were thinking about whether or not to take that risk is, what's the risk of not doing it? What's the risk of not going for it? And I think that's something that people overlook a lot, is whether it's the eco challenge or something else. Maybe it's your career choices, maybe it's moving somewhere you've always wanted to move, or whatever. Sometimes people overlook the risk. What's the risk if I don't go for it? I've got this chance to do something that right now is very important to me or to my family or to my kids or my community. Sometimes people don't go for it, and there's a big risk to that. So, I'm thankful that we realized, if we just kind of throw in the towel here and don't go for it with something that's really important to us right now, there could be risks down the road. So I'm glad that we went for it. I think we've continued to stay engaged. This book process has continue that engagement, which I think has been great for Dad, and I know has been great for me. We started doing a podcast together, which is a way to continue that engagement. And then I also think back to that impact idea. If you read the self-help and the mental health kind of stuff, which I'm way into, people want to help, and having an opportunity to help someone that helps the helper. And that's something that, especially if you can take something that maybe has been a challenge or, a perceived weakness and turn that into, actually, this is an opportunity to help people. I think Dad's done that. And I was amazed, Dad, do you remember that? Like 2 days after you were diagnosed, you decided, and I think you talk about this in one of the journal entries, you decided that you're going to use this as an opportunity to help people. And you started telling people, like at the rec center, hey, I was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and that gives them a chance. What did the one guy told you he had Parkinson's or something? And like, you got to hang out in the sauna talking about this stuff. Like that's really powerful. And you've continued, Dad, to make a big difference with the Alzheimer's Association, with some of their fundraising, doing chats. We've done some live keynotes. We've done a lot of these Zoom calls with Alzheimer's groups. I mean, that impact's huge. And I know it helps me, and I think it probably helps you too, Dad.
Sure it does. Makes me feel good, help people out if I can. And I talk to people, on the when I'm running who they recognize me, and I talk to them, and pretty soon, an hour's passed, and I'm BSing with the guy and telling him, you don't worry about all this stuff. You can continue doing what you want to do, and I don't know.
Yeah, well, Patrick, you're a team member, but like me, you're kind of outside of the core family story here, but you're obviously very kind of in tune with it, very much part of this process that Travis has been talking about. Maybe talk to us a little bit about how you met the Macy family, and maybe a little bit about your relationship, not just with Travis and Mark, but with Pam and others as well, and how that developed during the course of this book project.
Sure. Well, I do live in Salida, Colorado, the same town as Travis. And as it turns out, 2 doors down, before Travis and his family moved here, a family lives 2 doors down from me that the father of the family was one of Travis's best friends growing up in Evergreen.
Oh.
So I didn't know that at the time. Like many things we found out here, we owe all of our belongingness to our children. Everything everyone we meet comes through our kids here, because the kids are on the team or they play with kids, and then you meet their parents, and pretty soon you become a member of the community. So we have them to thank for that. And one day, one evening, my son, who's a little bit older than Travis's son, was down jumping on the neighbor's trampoline, and as I recall, and I went down to supervise, in other words, have a beer in the backyard while they jumped on the trampoline. And I met Travis, who was visiting and hadn't moved to Salida yet, but they were looking at houses, I think, fall of 2020. Is that right? Okay. And so we got to talking, the usual stuff. What do you do? And at the time, Travis, I think, mentioned that he was an athlete. I didn't really have any concept of what ultra endurance athlete was at that point. I'm like you, Kevin. You mentioned you're more of a mortal. I am also a mortal. I consider myself a multi-sport non-athlete. So I do things because mostly I want to be in my community. Everyone is a mountain biker. Everyone plays in the river. Everyone, does skiing, hiking. And so I do all those things, but I do them on a more mortal level, a human level. So anyway, I met Travis, and I remember coming home and talking to my wife and saying, I really met this really nice guy, friend of Mark's. And that was kind of it. And then Travis, I guess, had asked me what I did, and I told him, and I didn't think too much about it. I remember he was interested, but he didn't mention anything about a book. I take that back. He had mentioned he had written a book already, which is pretty impressive. But I did move on, and then a couple of weeks later, I got an email from Travis out of the blue and said, would you mind having a look at this proposal, and would you be interested? And sure. I remembered him as a pleasant enough guy. And so, yeah, I took a look at the proposal, and immediately it was a really well-conceived and executed book proposal. I was intrigued by the story. Travis and I got in touch. He did send me the proposal that he had already developed. And I thought it was excellent. And then we met, I think shortly after, we met for coffee, as he said, talked it through. And then a bit after that, it was Thanksgiving weekend, and he said, my parents are coming into town from Evergreen, and would you like to get together? And so I jumped at that chance. I wanted to meet Mace. By then, I was intrigued with the whole family. And he suggested we go for a hike together on the mountain right behind town here.
Well, that was brave of you to accept that, Patrick.
Well, yeah, right. So I think I did say, I will go on a walk with you, but if anybody breaks into a run, I'm out. You'll find me back in town. And so it ended up being a family affair. My 13-year-old son came with us, and I, barely had talked to Travis at that point in person. So Travis and I kind of fell in conversation as we hiked. And my son fell into conversation with Mace, and those two just jabbered away and were hitting it off. And so we walked for an hour or two. And by the time we finished that walk, I think we all realized we were going to work together. There were no commitments, but I'd kind of fallen in love with their story. As a writer, you're always looking for a compelling story. And I knew that they had a compelling story. as I got deeper and deeper into it and got to know them better, their relationship between Travis and Mace and Pam, the whole family, was really something extraordinary. It is something extraordinary. I've never seen it. I'm from a big family. I, I lost him early in life. But the depth of their relationship, their honesty, their sacrifice for each other and love for each other was really moving. And it gave me, as Travis mentioned, there's always got to be a reason other than the money. You don't write books for money. I've done this long enough to know that's the truism of that. So I had my reason immediately. It's just wanting to explore this with them. And I realized that this was a project they needed to do, whether they had a publisher or not. It was going to happen. They needed to do it for their own reasons. And honestly, wanted to help them take that journey. And so no regrets. It was excellent. And Travis talked a little bit about the way we worked, which was new to me. I'd never worked. I'd written books kind of like this, but never in such a full-time collaborative process. So this is technical, but we use Google Docs, which I'd never used. I'd always written on my own Microsoft Word or whatever, and then turned in a manuscript. Well, Travis and I, this is a live collaboration, and so we were seeing each other write. And at first that I was a little like, ooh, I'm not sure about this. And I would do a draft and say, Travis, I have to do this in my version, then give it to you. And then, after that first draft, as we got more comfortable with each other, we're like, let's edit on the fly. And it worked great. Travis is an excellent writer. His first book was really extremely well written. And I love the glimpse into this subculture, which is context for the book, this, ultra athleticism and the exploits that these guys have done. They both look fairly normal. Do not be fooled. These guys are extraordinary, and the things they do, which is really not what the book is about, but it provides a great insight into the kind of people they are. And as Mace was saying, that don't quit attitude, that's the Macy attitude. And it's been great for me to see, they're to look up to them. Really cool.
Well, that's a great summary, Patrick. And, it is a great story. But there are lots of great stories that never get told because the art of telling a story and turning, something profound in life into something that can be shared to people that don't know anything about you it's not an easy task. And you're obviously both very good writers, and you brought that collaboration to the point where you've captured the essence of that mindset, Patrick, that you're talking about. But Mace, I'm interested a little too in the diary entries, because Travis and I talked a little bit about this yesterday. They add something to the book that I just think helps bring it right up to even another level. It's because they're honest, they're forthright, they're very personal. And they have a tone about them that immediately, I think, strikes a chord in a reader in a way that is pure. Nothing to do with technique or anything. It's just almost like right to your soul. I'm just wondering how you feel about, obviously you're comfortable with it, but you're putting yourself out there in a way. And I'm just wondering how you came to that decision about including those diary entries, and how you feel about having your soul, as it were, and your most personal thoughts put right on display.
Well, actually, I wrote those diaries quite a long time ago, and I can't actually remember what I wrote or anything else. I just thought, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write this stuff, and here it goes. And here, Trav, do something with it. It's very simple for me to do that. Travis told you I used to be a lawyer, and I used to write a lot of stuff, and so I'm pretty used to it, or I was. But I don't know. It just seemed simple. I started writing, and there we go.
Did you ever think that that what you were writing was going to be, published in a book that thousands of people would be reading?
No, not really. I'm a pretty simple guy. I'm trying to get that across. That I never did think I would write a book. I always thought I'd like to, but I never thought I'd get around to it because I don't have time, and got kids and family, and used to have a job, and
Yeah.
And
I think maybe, Dad, one thing about the idea of being vulnerable, putting yourself out there, kind of exposing yourself a bit. One thing I love about these ultra endurance sports, whether it's adventure racing or ultra running or the Leadville 100 mountain bike ride, these are long, challenging events with a very uncertain outcome. And when you do them over years and decades, like Dad and I have done, sometimes things go well and you end up winning or setting your PR or whatever, but very often things don't go well or don't go as you've expected. And, oftentimes you're in a very, exposed setting, whether it's on TV or you're racing in front of people, or even just to yourself, right? It breaks you down to a very raw place. And I think that's a good thing to do, when we can put ourselves through challenging things that that have an uncertain outcome. You get more used to it. So something like a book where maybe you talk about here are my challenges, my low days. I talk about some of the real significant anxiety and depression that I've experienced through this process. It doesn't. I don't really care if people know that stuff, and furthermore, if it helps them, again, then great. So
yeah.
I think it kind of all goes together, and just sort of part of the deal, as Dad would say.
Right. And I mean, I think I know why you went into the ultra sports, Travis. But Mace, talk a little bit about what first attracted you to it, and when did you take your first race, or is that something you can recall?
No, not really. I mean, I've been an athlete my whole life. When I was a kid, that's what I did. I played sports, and my dad was an athlete kind of, and he played sports and he coached all the teams that I played on. I played all the usual sports, basketball, baseball, football, everything. And that's what I did as a kid. And I did it all my life as a kid. And my dad was always part of it. And I think I told you, he coached all the teams that I played on. And that kind of stuff just kind of, was normal for me. When I had my own kids, it was important for me to be around Travis's stuff and my other kids' stuff, and you just it's just normal.
And you were doing some of these ultra events when they were small children, presumably. So they saw you taking part in these, and they saw you putting yourself out there, and I'm sure that was part of their education about the world, right? And about you.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I think
it doesn't. I never thought that anything I did was special, and I still don't think anything I've done is that special. Just normal stuff that comes along, and you do it, and pretty soon you're hanging out with people who do the same stuff you do, and once that happens, you're in Fiji. Somehow you get to Fiji. You don't know how to get there, but here I am.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Fiji, because that Eco Challenge race is really the core event in the book, if you like. It's
Sure.
kind of the event around which the story gets told, and which the story leads into, which I think is really one of the great strengths of the structure of the book. Now, this is an event that went on for a number of years, and then they stopped. But I think you were involved, Mace, weren't you, repeatedly?
Yes.
During its height, and so you must have been really challenged and engaged by to keep going back there year after year.
Well, it was only 2 years, so the first Fiji race. I don't even really know how it came about. I heard about it, and and I decided to do this race in Fiji with a couple of friends of mine, and so we signed up and we went. And the first Fiji race, is very, very difficult race, and it's full of all kinds of, the terrain was very difficult. Everything stinks, and there's, it's not a pleasant place to be. And after that first Fiji race, myself and a lot of other friends of mine, we've decided, well, glad we got to Fiji, but we're not ever going back there again because it's just too darn hard. It's just, everything was difficult, and every one of us who do this kind of stuff, we talked about it and decided we're not ever going to do this again. And then all of a sudden, somebody says, there's going to be another race in Fiji, and my first thought was, bullshit, I'm not going back there. And I talked to, some of the best, author runners there are, I talked to them, and they all said they're not going to go again. And then all of a sudden, Mark Burnett's got Fiji on the schedule again. And I thought, well, might as well go. So all of us, here we are all again.
Yep. So we went, and that was
Yeah.
my first eco challenge, which was big for me. 2019, when we did the eco challenge / world's toughest race, and a little bit of the early perspective. Those original eco challenges, Dad did 8 of them between 1995 and 2002. So that was those were formative years for me as a teenager. I was doing my own sports and going to school and stuff, so I never got to go, but I would watch them on TV, and they were produced by Mark Burnett, and then these shows would air on Discovery Channel or USA Network, and they were commercially very successful, and it was actually kind of the start really of reality TV. So Dad would record those on VHS, and remember, Dad, we'd be downstairs, when I was a teenager, lifting weights and doing crunches and push-ups and watching the eco challenge. And I just always figured someday I'm going to do this eco challenge thing. And again, the eco challenge itself fizzled out after 2002 when they did the race in Fiji, and a lot of that was because Burnett went on to invest more in the Survivor show and then various other reality shows. And I continued. I finished college in 2005, and I got way into adventure racing and did many similar such races, multi-day events, in various places around the world, but never the eco challenge itself because it just didn't exist. So anyway, when it kind of, when the word came back in 2017 or 2018 that, hey, eco's coming back, Burnett's producing it, Bear Grylls is, going to be the on-screen host, all those things were very exciting. And the original plan was Dad was going to do the race with his good old buddies, Bob Haw, Marshall Ulrich, Adrian Crane, Nancy. These are, folks he's raced with over the years, and they're all over 60, which is another challenge in itself. And then I was going to race with kind of a more competitive oriented team. And as the Alzheimer's diagnosis came about and, the race got closer, Really, I just realized on a personal level, like, far more important to me right now than having a competitive experience in this race is doing something with my dad. That's going to be a big event for both of us, and we don't know how it's going to go or what's going to happen, but I know we want to be in it together, and I think that was the right choice, and that's a lot of the story that we try to tell in the book.
Well, definitely, and the story of how the race mirrors, the relationship, is great, and really is what I think moves the book up to another level. And I think in a way you've all answered this, but I'll ask it maybe in a slightly different ways. I'm just wondering, especially given I know Patrick, you've written other books, and Travis, you've written a book as well. What is it about this book that you want readers to take away that's different from what you've written before?
Yeah, I hope people read this book, and firstly find something relevant to them. I think that's something any author is seeking, is hopefully some personal connection. And some people might read it, maybe they're into these outdoor sports or adventure racing or something, and maybe it just inspires them to be active, to get outside, to do something challenging. But even more so, I hope that the deeper inspiration and message is just on that personal level, the community level, the family level, of let's focus on the team, let's focus on the relationships in our life that are really important, and let's hang together through adversity, especially through the uncertain, the uncontrollable, the pandemic, which hopefully is getting a little bit to the rear view mirror. I mean, that was a wake up call for all of us that, wow, life is a lot more out of our control than we may have thought or hoped. And something like Alzheimer's is, I think, a very similar, a similar journey, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know the time frame. It impacts everyone differently, and I hope that people get that message that, hey, when you face this huge challenge, this uncertainty, it's gonna rock you to the core. That's going to be really hard, but things can get better, and a big way to do that is to hang in there as a team and just keep doing your best day after day. So
yeah, that's a nice summary, Travis. Patrick, would you like to add to that? Or
Travis, I think, pretty much nailed it. I was only going to add to that I think readers may be drawn to this from different subcultures. There's interest in the ultra athleticism world that Travis has written about before. There's obviously interest from the Alzheimer's community, because we've got Mark is taking on a real high profile role with the Alzheimer's Association and has become a great spokesperson or symbol of what's still possible after you get that diagnosis. The takeaway for me, it was my personal takeaway, and I think it'll be the reader's key takeaway, is really the relationship at the core of the book. And I referenced that earlier. It's just a beautiful relationship, and it all kind of works together because of the relationship that this family has been able to accomplish so much in the 3 years post-diagnosis, 4 years now. It's amazing. I mean, when Mark gets told at diagnosis, you need to get your affairs in order and you're going to die. Well, here we are 4 years later, and the things they've accomplished are more than most people would dream of accomplishing in a lifetime. So, I mean, that is, I believe, because of this family unit and the way they trust each other and support each other, believe in each other. So that's my takeaway.
Yeah, that's a nice summary as well, Patrick. And I think as a person that's coming from the outside and reading this book that doesn't know you and doesn't know the community, one of the things that really impacted me when I first read it, and one of the reasons that I think Imagine wanted to publish this book, is that we feel that relationship, that nexus of relationships, not just between Travis and Mace, and not even just Mace and Pam, but the whole family unit, and the way that family exists within the Colorado community that you live in and everything. It is a very strong message, but it's also, I don't want people to watch this podcast either and think that this is a somber book, because this is not a somber book. This is a very exciting book, which has a lot of action as well. What you guys do is really remarkable, and you've managed to capture that in prose and communicate that too. And the drama of participating in the Eco Challenge is captured and is communicated. I'm sure some of our readers will have seen the Amazon Prime show on which, where you guys are featured, and they'll know how exciting it is. That same spirit runs through these chapters, I think, in a way that not only do you get the excitement, but then you get the context and you get the impact. And you couldn't ask for more from a book, really, to get excitement and adventure, but also to get, a good, profound message that can help us all face whatever it is we need to face as readers in our lives. I think that's something, and I just like to thank all three of you for having the vision to not only recognize this as a story that I think is meaningful, but also to have the skill to put it together in the way that you did.
That's one thing about this Alzheimer's journey that maybe other families can relate to. I mean, time and past and present, things become challenging. And another thing Dad's continued to teach me is just be in the present. It's never too late to help people, and just be here and now in the present. And I think that's what we'll keep doing,